Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Being a single 20-something in Pakistan is a lot like being in the hospital. Everyone keeps asking you when you're going to get out, or else when you're going to get married. Because weddings are a lot like immigration. They both involve a lot of forms and suitcases and sitting very still with very little leg room for a long stretch of time. Matrimony is a foreign land, after all, at least as good as an obscure European country. मेरा नाम युसरा है और मेरा तारुफ तो आपने सुन ही लिया होगा. बहुत अच्छा है क्योंकि मैंने खुद लिखा था. But there are things that are not included in my introduction. पहली बात, I am not married. Number two, thank you. Number two, condolences to you too, sir. Number two, I love Harry Potter. और आप सोच रहे होंगे कि इन दोनों oh, thanks. Let me get this straight. You don't like the fact that I'm unmarried, but you like the fact that I like Harry Potter, just to be clear. Yeah? Great. You might be wondering कि अच्छा इन दोनों चीज़ों का क्या ताल्लुक है इनके बीच में. मुझे भी लगता था कि कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है शायद, लेकिन एक दिन मेरे घर मेहमान आए, रिश्तेदार मिलने आए, बताए बगैर जैसे आते हैं. और मेरे हाथ में एक हैरी पॉटर की किताब थी. उसके साथ छोटे मोटे कुछ सूवेनियर्स भी थे हैरी पॉटर के. और एक आंटी ने ये चीज़ें देख कर काफ़ी कंफ्यूज होकर उन्होंने मुझे बोला, बेटा आपने इन चीज़ों का क्या करना है, आपकी तो शादी हो जानी है. अब शायद आपको कुछ समझ आया होगा ताल्लुक़ शादीशुदा होने के बीच में और हैरी पॉटर पढ़ने के बीच में. Auntie was asking me, why do you have pastimes? Why do you have preferences, personal interests? Why do you have book collections, bookmark collections, poster collections? Why are you indulging yourself as an individual? You are not an individual. You are a half of a whole. When you get married, you will leave all these things behind to take on the responsibilities of a married woman. Now, Auntie loves me. She wants what is best for me. And I don't wish for us to sit here today and judge her harshly. I don't wish for us to think of her as narrow-minded or old-fashioned. I don't wish for us to be hypocrites. Because the truth is, when we see a young woman in Pakistan, we think one thing, ye shaadi shuda hai. And if an answer is negative, we think, iski shaadi kab hoegi? And after enough time passes, we ask, iski shaadi kyun nahi hui? Right? So not only do we assume that marriage is and must be part of every woman's future, we also have this very specific ideas of what marriage looks like, right? My sister is married, but people assume that she is not often, presumably because she doesn't only wear lawn joras and gold jewelry. My mother is no longer married, and people assume that she is, presumably because we don't like to acknowledge that marriages can end. We do not allow women to be adult members of society until they engage in matrimony. When we say things like, बेटा मैं आपको गोल्ड का सेट लेके दूंगा लेकिन सिर्फ जहेज में. बेटा जहाँ मर्जी ट्रिप पे जाना है ज़रूर जाओ लेकिन शादी के बाद हस्बैंड के साथ. When we say these things, when we deny women mobility, when we deny them social position, when we deny them financial stability until they engage in matrimony, I ask you how much of that decision to get married really remains a woman's. So I'm 24, I am a woman, I am Pakistani, and I'm unmarried. And that is my identity in a way that it is not necessarily a man's identity. There are assumptions that are made about me that are not necessarily made about a Pakistani man. You see, when we see a young unmarried woman, we assume that her time is less valuable. We assume that her responsibilities are non-existent. And we assume that her life, however thriving, however exciting, has somehow not yet really begun. This is a poem I wrote called Assumptions. If you are a woman with depression, you can simply wait until the time comes to give up possession of yourself. If a man loves you, you can say thanks. If a man loves you and does it reasonably well, without bruises, a good height, and a certain single-mindedness, you can assume there is something wrong with you when you do not love him single-mindedly back. If you are afraid to exist alone, you can assume that's more or less the same as wanting to be with someone. If you are with someone, you can assume that everyone will be happy and everyone will hand you money in pastel envelopes and your mother will smile more. If your heart is not behaving as it ought, you can assume it's probably that first love's fault that brand new is the best way for a girl to be. If you're a woman whose arms and breast come easy to babies, you can assume that your heart and your womb are empty, waiting rooms. If you are a woman, you can assume things about your being, answers to questions that would otherwise take a lifetime to figure out. Thank you. Now, I don't wish to suggest that I am against women who choose to get married. I don't wish ever to suggest that a woman who is married at 24 is less complex or less interesting than one who is not. There's nothing that I dislike more than simplistic ideas of what is weak and what is strong, particularly in women. Many women who I love and respect have made that decision. While I might have my issues with the institution of marriage, because it is an institution that swallows 14 million underage girls every year, individually, I believe marriage can be an act of courage. And like I said, many women who I love and respect wish to be or are married. I do not wish to have judgments regarding women's life decisions. What I wish is for us to stop taking women's personal decisions and pitting them against each other to decide which is a better woman. As I said, so many women I respect belong to this institution, and this is a poem I wrote about the conversations that may arise between someone who belongs to that institution and someone who, at this point in time, does not. Because you see, I feel no matter what a young woman achieves, what she writes, where she's published, where she's invited to speak, whatever event she is part of, all her friends, her family, even herself are waiting on some level for that one event where she will be dressed in red and gold. My friend begins every conversation on the premise that a boy, if not this boy, if not the last boy, but someone will be the one. My friend asks these questions over and over again. Always, is he committed to you? Never, are you committed to him? Always, is he husband material? Never, are you wife material? Always, does he make good money? Never, don't you earn more than him? Always, so is he a keeper? Never, do you want to be kept? Always, so you could settle down with him, right? 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 My friend isn't afraid I'll end up alone. She's afraid I won't end at all, that I'll go on and on, beginning into new chapters of myself. My friend isn't afraid she'll end up alone. But what'll she do with her medal of matrimony when she sees that some women have not shown to this awards ceremony? What'll she do with all that heavy gold, all that weight around her neck? Maybe she'll have to admit that the ribbon is a gaudy shade of red. Maybe she'll have to ask herself if this prize was only worth something to her when everyone was competing. And if some women can drop out of the race, maybe she'll have to wonder if there are other ways to spend a spring afternoon. Maybe she'll have to question if red and gold really go with her complexion. Maybe she'll finally have to go out searching for something else to adorn her neckline, a chain of daisies she watered into bloom herself, a velvet choker, plush and black, or a string of zircon droplets in every color except red. The options that we present to young women are something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. Because apart from being a full-time unmarried woman, some women are unmarried part-time, guys, I'm full-time, okay, please. I'm also a full-time teacher at a girls' school. And so I'm not a very good teacher. I'm 5 feet tall, so I'm mistaken for a student most days and attempted to be kicked out of the staff room, but that's fine. My job involves two things. It involves literature, poetry, and metaphor, and language, and it involves beautiful, bright young girls. And those are my two favorite things in the entire world. Believe me when I say I would not be standing here today without the power of literature and the power of other women. And I would not have survived a lifetime of abuse without the agency that words afforded me and without the solidarity and the safe places that other girls provided for me. So when I look at these incredible young girls, I think about the options we are offering them. And I know that despite being some of the most privileged in the country, some of them will not complete their secondary education. Many of them will not go on to have a higher education because they will instead be participating in matrimony. And I know that in many cases that will not be their choice. So what I try to do, what I wish to do with these girls, is to give them language that helps them express themselves, language that empowers them. But I don't feel that I always succeed because I belong to an institution, we all belong to an institution. Just like there are institutions that curbs women's freedoms, there are institutions that curbs linguistic freedoms. And as someone who is part of that institution, I ask us all to reflect on that institution today so we can move beyond it. This is a poem I wrote called On Teaching English in the Post-Colonial State. After years and years spent unlearning it, I take prescriptive linguistics off the shelf in exchange for a paycheck. I put it on along with a floral three-piece suit, and I go to work teaching young girls to speak English correctly. The girls are my height. The girls are monochrome in navy and white, but their school bags are colorful and sequined and bright. Their school bags are all they have to differentiate themselves by. The girls ask me how I know so many big words. The girls ask me, Miss, do you know all the poems in the world? The girls ask me, Miss, is it pronounced Macbeth or Macbeth? The girls are tested on comprehensions about Cousin Helen. The girls are made to read a play by a 400-year-old Scottish warrior written by a dead white man. The girls ask me, Miss, what is Lady Macbeth's first name? The girls ask me why the past tense of bring isn't brang, and I say, it just isn't. The girls ask me why lasagna is spelled lasagna, and I say, it just is. The girls ask me if they are allowed to speak in Urdu. But most of all, the girls ask me, Miss, is this correct? Is this correct? Am I speaking correctly? And I do not tell them, girls, language is not right or wrong. It is simply spoken. You see, I don't just teach a subject. I don't just teach a language. I teach the skill that determines success in the post-colonial state. I teach the marker of sophisticated intelligence. I teach what we have made into a prerequisite for respect. I teach privilege. I enter the classroom and the stakes are higher. Being bad at maths just makes you relatable, but being bad at English means you will probably be bad at life. So the girls ask me, Miss, is it pronounced poem or poem? And I do not say, girls, it is pronounced however you choose to say it. Thank you so much.